Hey everyone, and welcome to Already Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Tara, and we are going to talk about the classic Twilight Zone. This is Season 1, Episode 18. It's called The Last Flight. So, full spoilers for the episode, as always, as the vehicles spin up outside. To
You can hear it.
Give us an audible. Yeah. It doesn't quite sound like a plane, admittedly, but I mean, in the right setting, maybe it would. Okay, so did you remember this one at all when you were watching it?
No.
Bizarrely, neither did I really. Even though it actually felt quite memorable as I was watching it, I just don't remember.
Yeah, I guess I can jump right into it. I like this one.
I like this one also. It was a nice episode after last week's, semi stinker. This episode, The Last Flight, is about a pilot in 1917, World War One, a British pilot who goes through a mysterious cloud and ends up in a different time. Now, if this sounds a little bit like the final countdown, you'd be forgiven for thinking so. He ends up in essentially present day at the time of the show. Although they still say it's 1959. This aired in 1960, but obviously they probably shot it in 1959, so they were still, or at least wrote it.
Yeah,
and didn't think ahead and go, we should, assume this is airing in 3 months or whatever. So he ends up in present day at an American Air Force base in France. And basically doesn't realise right away that he's in a different time. He thinks things are a bit weird. He's like, wow, these Americans are a lot more advanced than I thought they were, kind of thing. But through being not interrogated, but through just talking to the commanding officer, the general, and one of the majors, they kind of come to this realization that he thinks he's from 1917. They obviously find that hard to believe, but he's dressed in this uniform. He goes through all the motions. And then it turns out that someone he knew, his kind of flying partner from World War One, is actually now I can't remember the rank, but he's like, he's this senior high up officer who's coming to do an inspection of the base.
Yeah, I guess they said general.
I guess, yeah, maybe major general or vice general or something like that.
Like a air command general, something like that.
Yeah, super high ranking, older version of him. And then that kind of freaks out our main character, this Decker. And I'll leave it there for now, but we'll get to kind of where it goes. But that's the general gist of it. And yeah, I liked it quite a bit. I think I did note that the ad break came quite early in this episode because it came up saying the Twilight Zone for the ad break, and I thought, man, halfway through already, that feels quite quick. And I checked the time, not right away. I was watching, I kept going, and I was watching the scene in the holding cell that he was being kept in. And I'm like, I wonder how much time I've got left, just because sometimes I like to check. And I still had like almost half the episode left, and it had been a few minutes since the ad break, and I was like, oh, that's why the first half felt so quick, because it wasn't half, it was whatever.
I didn't even notice.
For whatever reason, I guess they wanted the cliffhanger for the ad break to be that moment, that it was, and because of that, they just had to have it earlier in the episode. So I guess it happens sometimes, but...
Okay. Yeah, I thought they were kind of on a fixed schedule for TV shows back then.
Yeah. So he lands and he's looking around and he sees like a jet at one point, and he's like, oh. And this kind of made me laugh from a present day context for us, because I'm like, yeah, this feels kind of, like now we would be doing, like, the final countdown went into the past, and it was like, oh man, we're super advanced compared to these old planes. We would do that now for the 50s and 60s, right? We would go, oh, look at how much better our planes and stuff are compared to the 60s.
Right.
So
both of them were like a 40-year jump too in time.
You're right. Yeah, not exactly the same, but in the ballpark for sure.
Yeah, pretty close.
So, yeah, I really liked the first half. I mean, I like the second half as well and where it goes at the end, but the first half, which I think we'll focus on just because it kind of neatly breaks in, because the first half is purely about the realization of what this is. And I think it's obvious to us right away, because we're watching a sci-fi show. We just immediately get this pilot has traveled through time to 1959. And he's talking to because the moment I really liked is when they ask him, who he is and what he's a part of, and he says he's a part of the Royal Flying Corps, and the guy's like, "You mean the Royal Air Force?" And he's like, "No, Royal Flying Corps." And I'm like, I guess that was the thing before the Royal Air Force.
Yeah, it's a good little history lesson.
Yeah. I appreciate that.
I liked the first half a lot too, especially because it's he has to try to convince the um I don't know what rank he is, but the guy that outranks him who's sitting at the desk,
General.
um, that he's from another time period. And it's like, how do you convince somebody? Like, especially when you're from the past, that would be more difficult than I think convincing someone that you're from the future.
Oh yeah, because if you
Because
went,
you have things from relics from the past that you can bring.
yeah, because if we went back in time, I think the easiest way to prove to someone you're from the future is to whip out a smartphone and be like, "Hey, look at this."
Yeah.
Go to Google. And then it goes to Google, and you're like, look at Google, and like, what's Google? It's like it's an internet. Oh, it wouldn't work obviously because there'd be no internet connection. But you know what I mean? Like you would just whip out the smartphone and do something. You'd be like, look at this. This is
Yes.
a video playing. This is music
Look at
playing
my
from a
magic
phone.
block.
Yes. They'd be mesmerized with it. Um, like I always whenever I watch something in the 90s, there's an episode of the hit television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer, where Willow gets all excited because Ted, who's Buffy's mum's new boyfriend for an episode, played by John Ritter, who's a fantastic character actor, or he was rather. He did pass away a while ago, but
Yeah.
he's like a computer salesman or something like that. That's his job, and he gives Willow an upgrade for her computer, and I can't remember what the figure was, but they were talking about like upgrading their RAM, and it was like however many megabits of RAM, and I just remember giggling. Whenever I watch that episode now, I'm giggling to myself because like, my toaster's got more RAM than that. And Willow's so excited, and he calls it like a rocket ship because it's so powerful. And I'm like, God damn it! Like, it's the old story that like the phone you have now has more computing power in it than the entire like Apollo space.
That room full of hard drives. Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. I love that photo of I think it's like a hundred, or no, it's a 64 megabit hard drive from like the 60s, and it's this giant. It's like a fridge coming off a plane.
Yeah.
It costs like over $100,000 or something, or maybe it's not 100, but it's like thousands, tens of thousands at least of dollars. And now you've got an SD card that fits in your finger, like the tip of your finger, and it holds gigabits and gigabits. And it's just kind of.
And yet they were still able to send people to the moon.
I know. Imagine what we could do
And
now.
not now.
we should be way further on the space side of things by now.
Why am I not on the moon right now? On my moon house.
we should be podcasting from the moon. We should be in 0G doing this. But no.
Technology has let us down.
Technology, more like the governments of the world have let us down with their priorities. Bastards.
Yeah. Although I think it's less cool in this case because it's looking at there's no real technology in the episode that he's amazed by other than like military airplanes.
Oh sure, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I will say this: I think it wouldn't be that hard to convince Trump that it'd be cool to go to the moon, and then he would put all the resources of the country into doing it. You're like, hey Trump, wouldn't you think the moon would be cool? Because he's like a 9-year-old. You just like, hey, don't.
Yeah. I think he said something about either going to the moon or going to Mars. He definitely wants like a space force. So
can he stay there? Can we ship him off to Mars? He'd blend in with Mars.
Yes, he would.
All right, back to the episode. I wanted to make a Trump joke. Okay, we can get back to the episode. No, I think I really like the way it paced out the scene, though, in terms of revealing the information. And like, I like that Decker from 1917 kind of like, because he's like, wait, what's the date? And they're like, whatever, March, and he's like, no, what year? And they're like, 1959. And he's like, I'm from 1917. And obviously, they kind of just listen to him and ask him some questions for a bit. And I was almost going to complain that they weren't like being, disbelieving enough. But then they brought that on quite hard later in the scene where they start really like, no, you expect us to believe this is some kind of hoax. This is, we can't go along with this. This is silly. This is nonsense. But I like the performances because Decker looks genuinely amazed when he looks out the window and sees the jet. He's like, whoa, what is it? He's mesmerized by it.
And the other officer that's with him is skeptical, but I think he kind of wants to believe him the whole time because he can't quite believe why somebody would play this kind of practical joke on
Yeah,
him.
he's not ready to believe that what he's saying is the truth, but he believes that at the very least Decker believes what he's saying, or that it's more than just a joke. It can't just be a prank. There's more to it than that.
Yeah.
And he says kind of as much in a later scene with the general.
I think it's pretty well written. It was this one that was also Richard Matheson that wrote it? Because I think we had a couple of
It
his.
is, yeah.
Yeah, I think he's done a couple of really good ones that we've reviewed already, though I can't remember which ones. But I think I remember Serling saying that Matheson was coming back for this episode.
Mm. Mm. No, I like the writing a lot, and I think because the episode, because I was actually quite impressed with the budget to an extent, because all the stuff with the plane landing at the start, I was like, oh, this is actually kind of flashy for a show from this era. Is actually having
Yeah.
shots of the plane landing and all that stuff, and you've got the truck and all that. And the rest of the episode is mainly just two characters or three characters in a room talking to each other, which a lot of Twilight Zone becomes, and that's okay. The great thing about science fiction is it can be built up in just ideas. It doesn't necessarily have to be flashy and have explosions and laser beams and all sorts. A lesson that something like the Wandering Earth could maybe learn. Which, don't get me wrong, I do want to see some flashy stuff too. I do, but it needs the substance as well to
Yes, exactly.
make it work. Whereas something like this is less flashy, but it has more substance, and the substance is what makes it feel entertaining to watch. And because one of my favorite moments after the ad break is the major. Yeah, the major. He comes into the room where they're keeping him after he talks to the general, who this doesn't really believe it, but they're looking at his ID, they're looking at his papers and things like that, and they're like, this is really impressive. Because the other big thing in the first half, of course, is that he says that his flying partner was this guy, and they're like, wait a minute, he's coming here to inspect us, and how did you know that? And he's like, I didn't, and he's like, because the big cliffhanger is like he can't be alive because he's dead. Like that's the moment, and that's kind of the big dramatic point we go out on in the ad break, which is a really good little cliffhanger actually, because it gets you going. Okay, how exactly does that work out then? Where's this going?
Mm-hmm.
And we have this scene with when he comes to see him in the room, and I love the moment where he's describing why this guy's still alive. The major's like, yeah, he's still alive. He's a war hero. He was a war hero in the Blitz, and Decker looks at him. He's like, oh, that was the other war we told you about. And I'm like, oh, so there was some information that exchanged. You talked about World War II after, in the ad break.
Filled in a little bit.
Yeah, that's good to know. And he saved a bunch of lives. He got a medal for it. Yada yada yada. And I really like that moment, and I like thematically where this episode goes, because like a lot of episodes of Twilight Zone, I kind of saw where it was going long before it finally revealed or had the character realize himself what he wanted to do. And I was like, I think I get this episode, because as soon as he starts talking about he's a coward and he always ran, and he wouldn't actually patrol the skies like he was supposed to, he would just go and hide in the cloud until he's it's enough time has passed, I can say I patrolled easy, and he would go back to base or whatever. As soon as he said that, I'm like, this is an episode about him realizing he has to go back and save him, because this other guy goes on to save so many lives and is so important to the effort and multiple wars, that he has to not be a coward and save him, even if it kills him.
Right.
And that's what the episode's about.
And he has immense shame for being a coward.
Yeah.
When and I couldn't help but think of a movie that I brought up many, many times, but Passive Glory.
Oh, yeah.
Which is all about the cowardice of World War One. It's such a huge theme of that war and the soldiers who fought, because I mean, it was just so much of going over the trench and dying, and it was just about whether or not you were a coward and how they treated cowardice people. So I think, I don't know, I couldn't help but link into that too when they brought up cowardice and when he was fighting World War One.
Oh, of course. And for the record, and this is easy to say with hindsight and from a modern day perspective, but I will happily argue with anyone in charge from World War One that is not cowardice. It's called intelligence.
Yes, of course.
It's called knowing that you're just going to be mowed down and it's not going to accomplish anything. So what's the point? Let's not do that.
Right. Right.
As is the problem with World War One and the trench warfare.
Yeah. It was just about how many people you had you can throw into a meat grinder.
Yeah. Yeah, World War One's a nastier war for sure. I mean, obviously, I mean we've brought this up in a few different shows, reviewing a few different things, but the idea that World War Two has the villains of the Nazis who seem worse in terms of, Hitler's plan and what he was doing was worse, but the actual fighting in World War One was much grislier and like consistently bad, and
Hmm.
not that no one died in World War. Obviously, people died in World War Two that shouldn't have died, but
Yeah, but World War One seems like a lot of just needless death
yeah. So
because no ground was ever made, it seemed.
yeah, it was essentially just a series of stalemates for 4 years.
Hmm.
Um, you know, humanity can be stupid is basically the thing. Um,
Yeah.
but no, I like this idea, and I mean, sure, the episode never really brings up this idea that I mean, obviously, what he's doing is like wrong. He's got up to do a job and he's avoiding doing it. He's just kind of hiding. Like, obviously, that is different to the trench warfare in a lot of ways, but
Hmm.
the episode never really sort of brings up the idea that maybe he's just not built for this. Maybe he shouldn't be doing this. It's more just about him making the choice and basically seeing the evidence that he needs to see to know that like why he should do what he does. That what his actions matter. That he's not meaningless.
Yeah.
And that leads to his choice. And he has this bit of a breakout where he punches the major, and then he punches the guard at the door, and he runs to the plane and takes off. And
Well, he punches another guy. He does three punches, and all three are knockouts, including one that he punches in the gut.
yeah, that's an old TV trope, that for sure.
It's a
Yeah.
powerful fist in 1917.
Hell, it still happens these days on like CW shows. Someone will just get like thrown back against the wall, and it won't even hit their head, but they'll still be knocked out. Or the impact will just knock them out. And I'm like, come on, at least hit them in the head. Which is still a
Right.
trope. The idea that anyone who gets punched in the head in TV gets knocked out immediately.
Right.
It's still
Nobody
a trope.
ever dies.
But yeah, no one ever dies. No one ever has like lasting effects because of a concussion or
Hmm.
anything like that. It's just no. It's a safe knockout. They'll get back up in 10 minutes and be fine.
I have to let my cat in.
That's okay. That's okay. I do that all the time. As you know, people at home. It's now Tara is in the same boat, and that's kind of funny. Look at all those exciting boxes in the background. I wonder what's in them. I think the one on the left is probably a foot massager. That's my guess.
How big do you think my feet are? You're wrong.
uh, to,
It's
to,
my life-size replica of Tom Cruise.
to my credit, though, my left is the other box on the screen. I was looking at the squarey one, not the rectangle. No, I like where the episode ends, and obviously I like that the old major or general comes in, and he's always very pleasant. He's very nice to them, happy to meet them, and immediately the major, who was kind of believing him and did let him go, because he had him at gunpoint in the plane. And the guy's like, "Shoot me, then! Like I don't care. Like I need to do this."
Clearly, he's over being a coward.
Exactly. That's the moment that tells you that first and foremost, really, that he's not just doing this and saying it. He's actually willing to go through with it. And so the major brings him up, and he's like, "Did you know this guy?" And he's like, "Yeah, of course. I should know him. He saved my life." And he starts like asking more questions, like, "Oh yeah, no, he disappeared, and I thought he'd ran, but then seconds later, he came barreling out the cloud, and took out three of them, and died saving my life.
Yeah.
And then, of course, they show him his effects, because he never got his effects back. And of course, immediately I went, "Oh, because you took them from him. He never had them on
Right.
him."
Yeah. They're at his desk.
Yeah. What's the cat doing? Because you keep looking over at the
He's
side.
trying to get out again. Sabotage.
Sounds like Garrus. That does sound like Garrus. So,
Give me a guess.
but I really like these moments because they show him his effects, and he's kind of like, so he's like, "How did you get these? What's going on?" And then the major calls him lead bomb, which was a callback to a story that Deckard told him about him getting hit by a German plane. And it was like a private joke that he never he never did it in front of anyone else because it was something that would embarrass him. So he was, out of respect,
Right.
he only did it in private. And it's like enough
Right.
to let him know that, wait, how could you know that? So that they might
Yeah.
believe what he's presumably about to tell him, that he was here, and that he escaped and went back. I guess if I was to critique the episode in some way, is that I have no idea why Decker is so confident that he can find the cloud again and magically fly through it and go back to the future or the past.
Yeah, I guess he just has a lot of confidence that it has to be there, that he has to be the one who
Mm.
saves him because it couldn't be somebody else. There's no one else around. And there's no way he would have gotten out of it on his own. So it has to be there. Like he just had to go into the future to know that this was his destiny.
Yeah. It's a really simple tale in a lot of ways, but I think the expertise of this episode is just
Hmm.
really well written dialogue that plays it out in a
Yeah.
fairly natural manner where you're not like going bullshit like every 2 seconds at how the characters react to things. You buy that. Okay, it's a slow realization. He doesn't get out of the truck and go, "Oh my god,
Hmm.
what's going on here?" The other characters think that he's in a fair or something, or he's in a show with a costume. He says, "Are you making a film?" kind of thing. It builds up.
Doesn't know what that is.
He's like, a film. To be fair, they did have silent movies at this time, at least.
Sure.
In 1917, there was Train Comes at Screen.
Oh yeah, my favorite.
I love because I mean I don't know how true it is, but there's the famous story that everyone freaked out because they thought the train was going to hit them when that was shown
Yeah.
in theaters.
It's like it's really there.
I would love to like go back in time and then show them like a disaster movie instead. Like just swap out the real. So the first thing they ever
Swap it
see,
out with Independence Day.
yeah, is like buildings just being toppled and like just watch them react to it. Or hell, no, show them like a horror movie. Like go back in time and like say, here, this film's called Halloween. Enjoy.
Yeah. You guys want to get scared?
They would not be prepared for
Yes.
that.
Sorry, my cat's being such a jerk.
I love how for
Yes.
once it's Tara's one cat and not one of my 3 cats that's causing trouble.
I mean, it's because I now have a place where I have a roommate, so I have to keep the door closed while I do this embarrassing thing. And because of that, now the cat is not used to closed doors.
This
so he
embarrassing
can't.
thing. I assumed it was so that there wasn't noise coming from other rooms, but no, it's because you're embarrassed.
I can't admit what I do here
You're
to
em-
anyone I know.
I'm going to try and find someone you know via social media and send them a nice little link.
I'm not on social media.
You're not, but people you know might be.
You don't know the people I know.
I know your sister's name.
Shit.
And I know your last name, so I know her last name.
Damn it.
Look at what Tara's doing. She's on the internet.
Betrayal.
I would do that. This can remain us and the entire audience's dirty little secret.
Shh. No one tell anybody I know that I do this.
That actually reminds me of a great joke. Ricky Gervais had a stand up like a decade or something like that ago, where he said like he told a story like a sort of kind of embarrassing story about a celebrity, and then said at the end, right, okay, and everyone here, don't tell anyone, right? Shh. And there's like 10,000 people in the crowd. But keep that between us.
Yeah. Stop.
This cat is sabotaging this show. Something awful.
He only wants to go out because the door's closed. Fucking cats. They're lucky they're so cute. All right, he's given up for now.
Oh dear. Ed, is there anything else you would like to talk about in this episode?
I thought the episode was great. I think you went over all the bullet points that we went through about why it's great. The cat's trying to reach for the doorknob now.
Oh dear. I mean, he's a smart kitty at least.
Yeah, it's really well written. I love the dialogue. The acting's good. I even like that they got they got really cool sets for it and like props for it. I don't know if that's a genuine World War I plane, but it looked like it looked really cool. Yeah, great episode. Weird follow-up to the last one, which was terrible. A lot of these early episodes, I think, they kind of remind me of like old science fiction short stories.
Mm-hmm.
And
See that.
they feel a lot like that, like old future stuff. And I think this one works as a really tight short story as well.
Do you know what I really like about an episode like this as well, apart from just the good act performances from the actors and just the general kind of like discovery of what's going on and the realization of what the story is really about, um, is that I love, and I was kind of getting to this point earlier when I was talking about like, if this was today and it'd be the 50s and 60s, it would be the time in the past, and they'd be
Hmm.
oohing and our technology. Is I love get that perspective of like people in the 50s and 60s thinking we're so advanced now. Let's like show how advanced we are to someone from the past, and it'll show off
Yeah.
our fancy things. And we watch that now, and it's like, ha 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 ha.
You're right. Well, that's the beauty of science fiction from this time is that it's all old future stuff.
Yeah, no, I like that too. In fact, just because me and Connor, obviously we record these episodes a little bit in advance. Gus, Kitty, shut up. we, we
Excuse me.
we record these episodes a little bit in advance, and because of that, like this will date when we recorded this. But just today, I was reviewing an episode of Dark, the time travel German show on Netflix, and there was a character from the past. I won't get too specific for spoilers' sake. Who is in present day and is in a library and asks, "Hey, where can I like find like the old newspapers and stuff?" And the guy turns to her and says, "Oh, it's all been digitized," and just goes back to what he's doing. And the look in her face of like, the hell? And she doesn't want to give herself away, so she says, "And where can I find that?" Not knowing what that means. And then there's a whole scene with her interacting with like a tablet, like not being confused, and
Mhm.
it's really good. It's really, and that's not why the show is good. The show is good because it's playing with like timelines and connections in so many ways. I highly recommend Dark if you're into like sci-fi shows that are really intricate and interwoven and so on. But yeah, basically today was a time travel day for me because I watched the episode of Dark and reviewed it with Connor. We are doing this episode of Twilight Zone, and then the episode of the Ace that we're recording right after this is Primer, which will already be up by the time this episode goes up. So it's been a time travel heavy day. And
My
this
brain
episode,
is scrambled eggs right now.
well, that's the thing. This episode is easily the easiest of the three for me. And I mean, you
Yeah.
didn't watch Dark, but it's definitely easier than Primer. This is the most simplistic one, and that doesn't make it bad. It makes it fine. It's just every time we compare this to the new Twilight Zone from 2019, every single time it's like, no, they keep this actually quite simple. They just explore the idea and have characters like
Yeah.
sort of go through the thought process, and that's what makes it so good at what it is. Um, Excellent. There we go.
Did we get Rod Serling at the end of it
We did.
telling us what's coming up?
We did. I want to say it was the Purple Testament. Oh, I was right. I just clicked on the next one. It's the Purple Testament, indeed.
I don't remember him showing up.
Now, he showed up and he mentioned it was another, again, what is it? I mean, it's not a time travel thing, but we'll get another army thing. That's World War II this time, though. Um,
Okay.
So again, this classic thing this season of like doing two kind of similar things, or there's connections between two
Yeah.
episodes that are back to back. It's weird.
That happens so often.
Yeah, so here's the description on IMDb. A U.S. Army lieutenant serving in the Philippines during World War II develops a harrowing ability to see the faces of the men in his platoon who will be next ones to die. So it's not quite time travel, but there's definitely an element of seeing the future, kinda.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, sounds dark.
it's a little bit dark. I don't remember this one for the life of me. So we'll
Neither
see.
do I.
We'll see how it pans out next week. Which actually reminds me of something I brought up with Tara before we started recording, but I'll mention it in the show as well, just
Mhm.
for curiosity's sake. People in the comments can tell us. So in this episode, Decker says the word lieutenant a couple of times. So I'm asking the audience here: is lieutenant a different thing from lieutenant, or is it just an old way of saying lieutenant? I'm just because I've
Or
heard it
is it a
before.
British thing? It might just be a British rank.
I don't know if I don't think British people still say it though. It may still be an old thing.
Maybe. I only know it from this episode of Twilight Zone and from Master and Commander. There's lieutenants.
It may be an old
That's all I
British thing.
remember.
I know that sound anywhere. I know that sound anywhere. So as Tara is dealing with the cat, I will thank everyone for coming along and enjoying this very haphazard episode of our Twilight Zone reviews. Do remember that if you like audio feeds for podcasts, we do have a feed for this now. It's not up to date. We're doing 2 or 3 episodes a week on that feed till it catches up with the videos, but it's called Fuzz in the Zone. You can like and subscribe. There's the culprit there, Gus K. Oh, you little menace. He has a much more dead stare than Firefly does. He's got this like...
Yeah, he's got a real derpy face.
Yeah. But yeah, you can like and subscribe, and you can support us doing that. You can also support us by rating us on your podcast app 5 stars, or of course financially over at Patreon. Tara, why don't you explain Patreon to them?
Yeah, Patreon is a good way to support the channel. It's patreon.com/SmileFuzzTV. You can donate as low as $1 per month, and with the dollar you get bonus content for other shows that we do, including the Ace, which we've brought up already. And you get these Twilight Zone episodes a week early. So check it out.
Yeah. So you could do that. And check out other content we've got. It's worth mentioning that Babylon 5, which is kind of on hiatus right now, but it will be me and Tara once she catches up. She's catching up right now. So that will be more Peter Tara sci-fi content. So, I mean, on a regular bit, not counting new things that Tara jumps on, like Big Little Lies, which we're doing right now. Tara will be on Twilight Zone, Babylon 5, and the Sci-Fi Movie Podcast every week. So she's basically my sci-fi co-host of sorts. Except for new sci-fi shows, typically, because Connor wants to do them. But
that's all right.
But when he hates something like the new Twilight Zone, Tara jumps on. To be fair, it makes more sense for you to do the new Twilight Zone anyway, because we do this.
Sure.
It makes sense.
I didn't want to volunteer for it.
Oh sure, but I
knew that Connor wanted to check it out. So,
but it makes sense for the comparison's sake that it's the same pair doing both shows. But that is us. That has been Twilight Zone episode 18 of season 1. So yeah, we're halfway through the season now. That's officially half of season 1 done.
Nice.
I know, right?
It's a long season.
It is a long season. These are damn ass long seasons. And then between the 80s and the 2000s show, we've got years of Twilight Zone to do. That's fine. It's fine.
Buckle up, everyone.
We'll be here for a while. Maybe when we finally finish all that, we can talk about something like the Outer Limits, but no promises.
If we can find them.
If we could find them. Have to get them off have to go down to the market and get them off a dodgy looking suspect who's selling them out of a suitcase. Y'all get any more of that Outer Limits?
Unedited, please.
Unedited. Yes, I believe I just made a Chappelle Show reference, even though I have never watched an episode of the Chappelle Show.
It's a shame. It's great.
Yes, just because that moment's been memed so much, for like TV shows and stuff. But anyway.
I don't know which one you're talking about.
You don't? No, the one where I think he's trying to buy cocaine or something like that, and he's got like cocaine under his nose, I think, and he's like, "Y'all get any more of that?" But people put in like a TV show name. Biggins. Yeah. Actually, I've not seen it, so I don't know the context.
Got that crack?
I'm glad you're so excited about this. All right, that has been.
It's a long time since I've seen it, but yeah, Tyrone Biggins. Great.
I love how as we go through this show, we're getting a lot more comfortable with just tangenting like mad as we talk about the episode, to the point where even this episode, which I think maybe had like 15 or 20 minutes of like actual discussion on the show,
and like 5 minutes of my cat distracting me.
Yeah, it's mostly the cat's fault, but we're actually hitting 35 minutes right now, so.
Ooh, we better close this thing up.
Yeah, well, I've already done the outro stuff. I just need to say thank you once again for watching or listening. You can, we've done all that already. Actually, it's been so long since I've done the outro stuff that I'm autopiloting into it again. Thank you once again.
Thanks for watching, everyone.
Yeah, thanks for watching and listening, everyone. We appreciate it always. Keep watching TV in the Twilight Zone.